If we could develop positive leaders, those positive leaders will build stronger teams that overcome adversity, that overcome negativity. Attitude is a big part of it. You have to have the right mindset in order to be a great leader. Wife almost left me. I was so miserable and negative. But the day she almost left me was really the defining moment in my life where I said, okay, I want to be more positive. I don't like being this way. I've got to make some changes. I was on a quest to get better myself. And then it began a quest to help others get better.
How have you helped those coaches or those individuals that maybe have been down that wrong path like you were?
So many leaders are on an island and they're isolated and they're disconnected. They know their company, they're leading their leaders, but who can they talk to?
Welcome to the Tyler Dickerhoof podcast with me, your host, Tyler Dickerhoof. On today's show, I'm joined by my friend, Jon Gordon. Jon, as you may know, is the author of The Energy Bus and so many other best-selling, amazing, impactful books. He's also the host of the Jon Gordon podcast. He speaks to audiences and organizations all over about positivity and attitude. Jon, I'm excited to have this conversation with you, man.
Thanks, Tyler. Great to be with you. I also speak a lot on positive leadership, which is what I'm really passionate about these days.
Let's go. Why? Why not?
Positive leaders change the world. Pessimists do not change the world. And so I wrote a book, The Power of Positive Leadership. And just recently as a company and as a individual, as a family, I realized, what is my main goal? Like, why am I here? What am I truly here to do? And it's to develop positive leaders in every organization, every business, every school, every community. And if we could develop positive leaders, those positive leaders will build stronger teams that overcome adversity, that overcome negativity, and also be able to make a great impact on the world and also each other. So what can we accomplish together? So I help leaders build stronger, more successful teams, and positive leadership is the way to do that. And then we also provide a ton of tools and resources for positive leaders to do that. So now we have a certification program where we're certifying people to literally develop positive leaders around the world, like a ripple effect. We have a guy who's working in the military now. His name is John Wayne Troxel. What a great name for a military guy. And John Wayne Troxel literally is going all around the military now, delivering our positive leadership programs to develop those leaders. You know the work I do in sports, have worked with just about every major championship winning coach, helping them develop their positive leadership to build their stronger teams. So it's really, attitude is a big part of it. You have to have the right mindset in order to be a great leader. If you don't have a resilient mindset, if you don't have grit and you don't have that positivity, leadership is a transfer of belief. So if you don't have that belief and you're not transferring that belief, you can't be a great leader. So I really believe like the number one characteristic of a leader besides integrity is definitely optimism, because you have to believe in a brighter and better future, show your team it's possible, and then rally them towards it.
You mentioned the power of positive leader. That was probably one of the, I would say, more impactful books on my life ever. And I think I've shared that with you before, just what that shared with me from being a person that didn't view myself as positive, but that I could be. And I know that was a journey that you had to endure from your childhood, from experiences to say, in kind of rough and tumble times in your adult life. So, I just share with the audience maybe that isn't familiar with kind of your personal journey of finding the reality that, that optimism, that realistic optimism is the powerful piece that individuals and leaders can have.
Isn't that funny that this is my life's work and I'm not naturally positive?
Yeah.
I grew up in Long Island, New York.
Gives me so much hope, man.
Yeah. And I really do think it gives a lot of people hope because, as you know, I speak all over the world. And when I'm speaking on these stages, I tell the audience, I am not naturally positive. I got to work really hard at it. We see other leaders who get up there and they're naturally positive. So people they love that. But I think what people say is they really resonate with what I'm saying. They resonate with my authenticity because I'm just real and I'm not this positive go lucky guy. I got to work hard at it. But here's what I know. If I could do it, anyone can. As I said, Long Island, New York, Jewish Italian family, a lot of food, a lot of guilt. a lot of wine, a lot of whining. And my dad was a New York City police officer, undercover narcotics. And so I remember telling my dad, I want to be a writer and speaker, Dad. I found my calling. And he's like, what the heck you want to do that for? That's a load of junk. That won't amount to anything. And then when I started actually speaking, he said, I can't believe people actually pay you to speak. When you're a kid, we paid you to shut up. So I grew up with this kind of mindset and I struggled, as you know, my 20s, early 30s. Wife almost left me. I was so miserable and negative. But the day she almost left me was really the defining moment in my life where I said, okay, I want to be more positive. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I don't like living this way. I don't like being this way. I've got to make some changes. And I literally cried out, God, why am I so miserable? Why am I so negative? What am I born to do? And that's when writing and speaking came to me. And then it was like, okay, what am I going to write and speak about? Well, you want to be more positive, start researching ways you can be more positive. And I found literally my life's calling, my life's work through my own challenges. I was on a quest to get better myself. And then it began a quest to help others get better because I saw how it was helping others. And now this is a mission, as I said earlier. How can I develop positive leaders who are better for their teams, better for their families, impact the people around them, leave a legacy, create positive change, and ultimately, this is how we change the world.
So I want to hinge on this because you've had some amazing mentors in your life, mentors that have been mentors in my life too, but so many more. But also, there's a component of your faith. So I want to first start with the mentors, the Ken Blanchards. Like I remember sitting in 1 Minute Manager at the Statler Hotel at Cornell, going through that. Ken was a kind of a mentor to start, kind of, and that list has continued to grow. But just tell me about that relationship, but also all the other relationships of mentors and how it's helped foster that growth in your positivity.
Yeah, I haven't really had a lot of mentors, I would say. Ken was
Okay.
definitely a mentor for me. He was
Okay.
my true mentor. If I had to pick one, it was him. I wanted to be like him. I got a chance to go spend time with him when I was first starting out. He taught at Cornell. I went to Cornell. That was the common bond. I sent him my early work. He supported it. I went to see him on Father's Day with my family. He invited us to his house on Father's Day. What an amazing guy. This was for the first time of meeting him on Father's Day at his house. It's an incredible story in terms of like just me being nervous beyond belief. I had written the manuscript for the energy bus, wanted him to write the forward for it. And when I got there, my son needed to use the bathroom down, and so they pointed us downstairs to go use the bathroom, like near their pool area. And we go down there, and I look at the toilet, and it's like stopped up. And so I'm thinking, oh, Ken's gonna think that I stopped it up, or that my son did. Like, what do I do about this? And so I called out, Ken, your toilet's clogged. You have a plunger? He's like, Margie, get the plunger. And so he gets the plunger and he hands it to me and says, here, good luck. And so now I'm trying to plunge Ken Blanchard's toilet and it's not working. And I am nervous and I'm going, this is not how I envisioned this meeting going. Like, this is how it started. I'm like, this is not good. And I can't get it to work. Finally, I'm sweating. I'm all nervous. My son's sitting there watching me. And I finally got it. What is it? Unplunged? Is that even a term? Unplunged. I came upstairs. I said, Ken, all right, I fixed it. And he goes, great, John. We got another one on the other side of the house. Can you do that one too? And I'll never forget it. So he agreed to do the forward. So that's servant leadership right there.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
We walked out of his house on the way to the car. I turned to my wife and I said, honey, I can always say I plunged Ken Blanchard's toilet.
There you
And
go.
and it's a hilarious moment, but it was like a really cool moment when I think about it. That was the beginning of my career. That book has now gone on to sell over 3.5 million copies. And Ken really showed me the way of what it looked like to be a positive leader, to be a man of faith, but also known in business. He wrote Raving Fans, all these great books, and just was so kind. And we did some events together over the years, which is really special. I have pictures and videos of those, and I'll never forget those. And then also when he was 79, we did an event together and he was like falling asleep before he got up on stage. And then when he got up there, all of a sudden it was like the lights went on and man, he just turned on and I saw the legend just shine. And I thought, okay, that's what I want to be like when I'm 79 years old doing that work. Now he's in his, 80s and can't really travel anymore. He's doing Zooms these days, but yeah, great mentor for me. And then I've spent so many time with coaches and leaders over the years and talking to Alan Mullally, who turned around Ford and Boeing. When I wrote The Power of Positive Leadership, I interviewed him. So in many ways, that was a mentorship opportunity to learn from one of the greatest leaders of all time and writing that book. And that was really incredible. And then also the different coaches I had a chance to work with, like Dabo Sweeney and others. I would say we would in many ways mentor each other. Like I would
Are those
share.
more peer relationships?
Yes, I would, but I would say I
Okay.
would mentor him in certain
Yeah.
ways, and he would mentor me in certain
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So like we were mentoring, teaching each other different things. Wherever Eric Spoelstra, we would share with each other what we were doing. Chip Kelly shared different ideas back and forth. It's almost like a think tank, and that's why I'm doing this event called Training Camp that I told you about because I'm bringing all these coaches that I have incredible relationships with to an event. I've been to Training Camp, but so many haven't. So I'm bringing Training Camp to you. And I'm bringing training camp, the lessons, the knowledge, the wisdom that I get when I'm hanging out with all these coaches. And I'm going to bring them to people so that they can benefit from all the wisdom and ideas and insights that these coaches have. It's really cool. And so that over the years has been a really incredible opportunity for me. And then also just every company I go work with, when I'm working with, Doug Conant, the former CEO of Campbell's Soup and, and leaders from Dell and leaders from all the various companies, you're just there, you're learning from them. You're hearing what they're doing, what's working with them, what their challenges are. So it's like this ongoing think tank, this ongoing like professor who's going out, doing the research in real life, not just theory, and then coming back, getting more and more ideas, best practices, and then compiling more and more tools for leaders to go implement. So I could say every book, now 31 books, I could say all my books is the result of all the time that I've spent with all these leaders. And then just recently, John Maxwell and I were at an event a few years ago, and we never knew each other all these years. And everyone always said, like, you're the next John Maxwell, you're a younger John Maxwell, all these kind of things. And I just, there's only one John Maxwell. I never wanted to be John Maxwell, but I always admired what he did and how he did it. But I never really followed him in many ways. And I spent time with him at this one event, the Kingdom Leadership Summit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when
With
I
Phil.
was there sitting with him, God spoke to me loud and clear and said, learn from him. Learn from him. And I said to John, God's telling me I need to learn from you. I would like to learn from you. I don't know what it is I'm supposed to learn, but I would like to learn. And what God showed me was really, it's not the writing style. I have my own writing style. It's not the speaking style. There's only one way he speaks. There's a way I speak. It really was to learn from him relationally, the way he's so relational and builds great relationships with leaders. Because I've been a hard charger my entire life of just going, speaking, and leaving. I really didn't take the time to spend a lot of time with leaders. And I've been doing that more and more. I know you do the roundtables, which is great. That's what I'm doing more of. Not, these events are like big roundtables. So I did a day with me and Patrick Lencioni. I did a day with Ed Milet this past year. John Maxwell and I are doing one next November together, a day with. So it's like we're bringing leaders together and connecting leaders with other leaders and then sharing ideas, insights, wisdom, and knowledge. And I'm loving that. I also have a circle now. I have a mentorship program. It's called My Circle, where I'm mentoring people, only 100 people, and I'm doing that. So that's the result of the last few years of my time spending with John and also Ed. And I would consider, again, these more peer relationships with both of them. Although, again, John's just has so much wisdom and experience. So just saying, okay, how can I be relational in that way? And the other thing I want to learn from him also is the way he shares his faith, in the marketplace in a way that, is something that draws people to the faith and to him. Because I want to be able to do it in a way that, and I do it in a way, my own way, but there's always a way to improve. And I love how it will have an event. And then after the event, at the end, he offers an opportunity to come join him to hear his faith story. And I'm like, that's what I want to start doing more of because I always respect the organization when I'm speaking, the audience, wherever I am. I'm not going to just share my faith, but if there's an opportunity to do so, that's a great way to do that and learn from that. So that's just recently those kind of things have come up. And also with Equip, he has the Equip organization, a nonprofit. And I realized in spending time, like, again, I'm pretty obedient. Like when God gives me a call, I listen, I follow. And it was like, don't build your own nonprofit. Don't build your own infrastructure. That's going to be a lot of time, a lot of energy. Support John with Equip, because John's 77, can't do it forever. So really support him now and get involved with Equip and bring leaders to Equip. And from there, help support Equip because the infrastructure is there. You believe in everything that they're doing, and then help to steward that as time goes on. And so that's something that I felt strong about doing. And I told John that, and it was really special. He actually, teared up when I told him, hey, I feel called to support you with
Dude, I love
Equip
it.
in that way. And yeah, my wife was very supportive of that too. Like, it's not about me, it's about we. It's not about ego,
Yep.
it's about small ego, bigger mission. And
Yeah.
how can we achieve the bigger mission that we're on together? And that's the path forward for me.
Man, you just in what you shared about your relationship with John, that's been mine. Kind of like what you said with you and Ken, that's been my relationship with John, and being able to go on trips and go on those transformation trips. I went to Guatemala, and to go to Israel with John, and to spend time at his Equip events, and being a legacy partner. My wife Kelly and I have very much the same. Hey, that's what we're devoted to, because the mission is so much bigger, and it's fun to watch the growth. But that mentor relationship, but this is one of the things, and you touched on it. And I think it's the reason why I host the roundtable. It's the reason you're doing what you're doing, is when you have like I would say a leader like Ken or a leader like John, and all of a sudden there's people that start to gravitate around it for all the right same reasons with values. You start realizing, oh, this is where iron sharpens iron, and you start to have those relationships that really build on each other. Here's what I want to transition that. As you've spoken to so many organizations and spent time with so many leaders, where do you find in the business world that is what leaders are missing? Is that community that really sharpens them?
Big time. They are missing it big time. So many leaders are on an island and they're isolated and they're disconnected. That's why I started the circle, because I'm like, I'm meeting all these leaders who need to be around other leaders, but don't know other leaders. They know their company, they're leading their leaders, but who can they talk to? I've been that kind of guy for all of these coaches in the NFL and college coaches. I'm the guy that talks to them, that's there for them, that has great conversations, that keeps things private and is here to support them along the way, and doesn't really, I never want anything from them. The first thing I'm doing now is ask them to come to my training camp event, and we've had relationships for 10, 15, 20 years. That's it. So I'm like, hey, can you come to this event? Like, yeah, of course. I'd love to do it. Like, let's do it together. Let's hang out together. Let's hang out with all these guys together. So for me, I could see that these leaders need that, and they're missing that because in disconnection, based on the one truth that I wrote, I'm pretty sure you read that. In disconnection, there is weakness. There is a feeling of powerlessness. In connection, there is healing. There is strength. And so, as leaders, you need to be connected to others' leaders, and we're not doing that enough in businesses. Think about it. You got your business, you're running your team, you're leading your team, you got your family, you got your goals you got to hit, you got a lot of stress, you got responsibilities, you got so much going on at work and home. You don't make time to get together with other leaders to talk and to share, be vulnerable. YPO does a pretty good job of this. Other organizations do as well, but we need to do more of it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's, in one of the great facets that I've learned, and you touched on this, what John Maxwell has kind of exposed to you, this idea of a value-based relationship. There's a friend of ours, Brad Lomenick. You might know who Brad is. I think
Of course, he has Brad. I've known Brad for 20 years.
A great description between networkers and connectors.
Yes.
And it's something that I referred to. When I spoke last week at an organization, I talked about that, because too often people will fall into networking at some of these events. How can I get for me? How can I get for me? You're around John Maxwell, and that real quickly, if you're like that, you will not be in the room again. You are not, it isn't like he'll tell you to leave or anyone else will tell you to leave. You realize you don't fit. And so you're going to conform pretty quickly to connecting. And if there's a natural bent to it, like you, of connecting, you start to say, man, I'm so grateful to be here. How can I serve others by being here? I believe that's what creates a lot of leaders to be alone on an island. They're too busy trying to network rather than connect. Would you agree with that? Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Here's the difference. A networker is seeing what can I get from you. A connector is adding value. And it's all about adding value. And I will always add more value than I receive. And I know John is the same way. I know Ken is the same way. So I'm going to make sure I'm adding more value. And so in my circle group, for instance, I am adding a ton of value and pouring into this group. And I made that decision early on. This is going to be a group that I really pour into, and I'm going to add so much value. I'm going to shower them with it, and they're just going to appreciate it and be like, whoa. And that's what I've done, because you never want people to say, I was expecting this and I didn't get this. You want to add more value. And I became a legacy partner of John's as well with Equip. My wife and I have, because I felt like, okay, if I'm going to ask people to get involved with Equip, I need to make sure that I support that as well, right? I got to add value. When I'm with a group, I want to add value. And I'm going to lead with a leader, man, adding value. That's all that matters to me, is adding more value than I take, that I get. And I think my wife will tell you, like, she'll give me a hard time because over the years I've given so much and I never ask and never expect. But I also believe that God has blessed me. Like, I may not get it from man, but God finds a way to bless me, and it comes in the form of so many opportunities of abundance. And I think that's the key. You're not looking at from others, you're giving to others, and you're letting God do the rest. So it's like I say in training camp, do your best, let God do the rest.
You know, to me, that is, it's something maybe I knew, but I really had to experience it in a bigger way. And for me, a lot of it was, you mentioned earlier this drive that maybe you had early on. You've talked about it in your books, kind of like, I was just pushing so hard. And it's what led you to Catherine saying, hey, dude, you change or I'm out, right?
Right.
And I believe for me, that was really my insecurity saying, man, you have to prove yourself. And I think, that is the biggest hurdle that I've tried to overcome and help others overcome, is understanding how our insecurities show up. But one of the things that you kind of pinpointed there is the day that I think you get over that hump. You're never beyond it, but the day you get over that hump is where you're so willing to just give value anywhere, anyhow, knowing that God will make it return.
So many of us are living from our wounds. And my goal is to get people to live from their healing, because it is our wounds, our past hurts, our pains, where we're trying to find validation because we don't feel validated, our identity that is under attack, that we're not enough. All of that leads to a person striving to do more, to hopefully receive more, to get more recognition, more praise. All of that is tied to an unhealthy ambition. And there's a healthy ambition that we have to pursue. And so it's understanding what's driving you. And so often the very thing that drives you to be successful is an unhealthy ambition. And it's what makes you a success. And that's the biggest challenge for leaders. It made me successful, so how can I give this up? It's been my fuel for so long. How do I let it go? It's what gives me an edge. So they think it's the true power source, but it's really not. It's a short-term power source. And eventually it will run out. It's like anger. You can get angry every day. David Goggins says, you got to get angry to be successful, right? You got to get angry every day to be successful. But anger is steroids of the soul. It doesn't last. And you got to keep on fueling up with it to have the energy that you need. And the real key is to replace it with a healthy ambition of love, of a desire to make a difference, a desire to make an impact, which is actually a greater, higher octane source of energy, a higher frequency that will make you more successful when you let go of the fear and you let go of the ego and you step into what you truly called to do. But just remember, no matter what, a human being needs three things to thrive. They need a mission, a team, and a scoreboard. You got to have that mission. What am I working towards? You do need your team for connection. And the scoreboard does drive you. I don't care how healthy or unhealthy a scoreboard drives us. But if you meet a guy like John Maxwell now, 77 years old, he's already won in a lot of scoreboards. So what's he focus on? Saving lost souls. That's his scoreboard.
Just
He has
his
a
scoreboard.
counter.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah, he
people have we
does.
led to Jesus? He has a counter.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
different scoreboard. A pastor says, how many people came to church today? That's their scoreboard. How many people got saved? We're now going to be focusing on how many positive leaders have we developed and impacted around the world. We're going to have a counter. So you need the scoreboard and it drives you. And if you don't have all three of these, you watch, you pay attention. Those who don't, and when you don't, there's going to be a feeling of being lost in some way when you don't have these three things. But it has to come from the healthy ambition. And I'm someone who had the unhealthy ambition. It drove me. I've got the wounds like everyone. I always had to prove myself, even as a running back, even as a lacrosse player at Cornell, always had to prove myself, work my way into the starting lineup. Was never easy. Got rejected by 30 publishers when I wrote The Energy Bus. It's always been a struggle. So my wound, my challenge is I've got to always keep, I gotta prove myself. And that thankfully over the last number of years has been something I've healed and really worked on and recognized. And it's always, okay, am I exhausted or am I energized? If I'm exhausted, that's telling me it's an unhealthy ambition that's driving me. If I'm feeling energized and fresh by the mission and the vision, the purpose and the impact and the relationships and the connections, then it's fueling me. And so it's about awareness. But this is the next stage. This is the next frontier. This is where leadership is going. It's going towards recognizing what's holding you back and what will propel you forward.
And I mean, that's again speaking my language, and I realized my intensity was a bulldozer. It pushed me forward, but it left carnage.
That's
and
good.
As you talk about this team, it's like I had to learn the value of connection. Inherently I was good at it, but it was always came at but it's for you. And it's like, no, it's not for me. And really embracing that empathy of being with others, putting my arm around them. The stuff that you're talking about, getting into those rooms with peers that, we get to serve each other, not, I'm one up on you. My scoreboard looks better than your scoreboard. Here's the question I have with all of that context. How have you helped those coaches or those individuals that maybe have been down that wrong path like you were to say, hey, no. That may have won you a Super Bowl, but it's going to lose everything in your life, right? And that's just an example. How have you helped them, I don't want to say see the light, but see the light?
Oh, just having these conversations, helping them recognize the wound and the hole in their soul and the challenge they're facing and why these things are coming up. All of a sudden, these things will start coming up in their life and their career. And it's an opportunity to have the healing take place. It's always the good that I see that's coming from it. And I pointed out, like, hey, the Band-Aid's being ripped off and now it's being exposed. But what a great opportunity for healing. And God loves you too much to let you just stay where you are. God's going to rip the Band-Aid off because he knows that healing needs to take place. So the status quo is not okay. This discomfort, the situation, this challenge, this angst that you feel, this crisis that's happening in your life is happening for a reason. So it's really helping them understand that and helping them see the healing they need and ultimately the connection with God that they need to have to heal it. It always comes down to that. Like all of that is always, I'm disconnected from God. There's no relationship with God. And so what's going to happen? Well, there's going to be negativity, fear, worry, anxiety. The root for the Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. So when you're anxious, you actually feel separate and divided. So everything comes down to feeling separate and disconnected. I had a leader recently say, man, I'm just negative all the time. I'm worried a lot lately. I got a lot of anxiety. I said, I bet you feel really disconnected from God. You probably felt connected at one point, but not now. They're like, you're right. How'd you know? I'm like, well, if you were connected to God, you would not be feeling those negative feelings and thoughts. You would be feeling powerful and joyful and courageous and confident and peaceful. The fruit of the spirit would be traits that describe you. And the fact that you're not feeling those things tell me you're very disconnected. So it's really about helping them understand that. And the One Truth is a great guide. I recommend everyone read the One Truth to understand. In the One Truth, you will understand the disconnection and the things that disconnect you and how to get back into oneness and connection and wholeness. And when you do in wholeness, that's where healing takes place.
Yeah. So, that's the conversation with leaders, right? That you get to have. How are you encouraging them to have that with their players or the people of their organization to kind of extend that a little bit farther? How do you encourage them to say, hey, you've recognized this, embrace this idea, oh, I'm going about it the wrong way, to bring it to those around them?
Well, that's where our tools come in. Like our whole focus is we help the leader. And as we help the leader, we then help the leader help the team. But the leader must heal to heal others. The leader must improve to improve others. So it starts with the leader. And once we get the leader in a different state, in a higher state of mind, and working on themselves, and they have the tools to improve their team, then the team gets better. And that's where the books come in. A lot of leaders read my books with their teams. So they all read it together. Those books are tools to help the team get better. I have a new one coming out in May called The 7 Commitments of a Great Team. I am so excited about this book. I could see so many leaders and their teams reading this book together. It's a fable because the power of a positive team wasn't a fable. This is a fable that they're going to read together and learn and share the 7 commitments. It's going to make a team stronger together when they read it. I can't wait. I wrote it over Christmas break this year, and
of course you did.
It was special. Till I was walking every day, and the story just came to me, and it just flowed. My wife couldn't believe it when I was done. She's like, "You're done?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done." It just flowed like no other. It flowed like even more than the energy bus when I wrote it. I really think it's gonna be special.
But here's what I've learned there is you've lived it. That's why it was able to come out.
I've lived it. I also have shared so many of these principles before, but I had to still weave it into a story with the characters and the main character. Coach Richie is based on and inspired by Richie Moran from Cornell, who changed my life. And so this is just another tool that a leader could use now to improve themselves and their team. But yeah, so it's about, okay, let's improve you as a leader. Then let's give you the tools to go help and share this with your team. Because a lot of time the leaders don't know what to do in the next step. And that's when I realized, oh, I didn't know this until recently. God, you're using me as a tool and to provide tools for all these leaders. And that's what's happened over the years. More and more leaders are coming up to me and say, hey, your books, your tools, your training really helped us go here and go there and do this. And I'm like, all right, that's great. I know that at 54 now. So how can I now repeat and multiply and do this even more now over the next 20, 30 years of this work?
What about your kids? I know Jade is speaking, has kind of, followed you in a lot of ways. What does that mean to you? And just seeing them as they mature, what does that mean to you?
Jade just gave a talk today, and she called me from the talk on the way before you and I just got her. I'm like, Jade, I got to go. I got to get on a podcast. And, but we had a great talk, and she was telling me about just the audience, how great they were, what they told her, advice she gave a leader that was, struggling and wasn't delegating. And my daughter was like, well, I really think you need to start delegating and doing this. I'm like, Jade, you naturally knew what to say. You realize that's your calling. Like, where'd you get that from? Because the advice she gave was incredible. She's like, I don't know. I just know. I'm like, that's me. Like, I just know. So then you know that she's called to do this, helping the seasoned leader of what to do. And Jade's 26 years old, but has been around it, studied it, read it. So I think it's really cool to see her doing this. But people say you must be proud. I'm not proud. It's like, I'm amazed what God could do. It's really like in awe of God, because it's not proud, because I know it was God's calling of her, not me. I never thought she would do this work. We never talked about it. I never pushed her to do it. So it's really cool to see what God is doing with her. And then my son, 24, is now working with us. and he's in sales. He handles our mentorship program sales, our certification sales. So a lot of people are talking to Cole. So I'll meet people out and about and like, hey, talk to your son. Man, he's awesome. He was coaching me up. He was encouraging me. And Cole's got the gift too. And I think Cole will be one day like a coach. I'm gonna encourage him to coach on the One Truth recently because he's so good at it. And he was a competitive tennis player and worked with a ton of sports psychologists. So like when he's working with a psychologist, they're trying to analyze him. He's already got you pegged in like 1 minute. And so he's sharp. And so he'll be really good at that. But right now he's doing sales and encouraging people and talking to them. So it's great to have my kids involved. And my wife's, as you know, she's doing this work as well. And we wrote Relationship Grit together. And she's out there doing some talks and also some coaching and not a ton of it. She's not looking to do a ton, but when people ask for advice, she's always there for them. And she's putting on a few women's events now. So yeah, it's funny. It's become a family business, and that's something I never expected would happen.
Well, I mean, the restaurants oftentimes are family businesses. My background with, agriculture are family businesses. Even ourselves in network marketing is a bit of a family business. I think when you find that, you end up seeing the fruits of your labor just a little bit more sometimes because it impacts the people close to you. It's really kind of moving.
Yeah, that's what John Maxwell said recently. He said, success is the people who know you the best, respect you the most. And I think that's a big thing. My definition of success is that the people who know you the best and love you will be crying at your funeral, and they're going to be there and crying because of the impact you had in their life, because you made them a priority. And that's to me a key. They're going to miss you. You made them a priority. And so many people are not going to be at your funeral, but your family, your loved ones will. And they're the ones who are going to really miss you. Other people, all right, man. John passed away. Where am I going to get my positive inspiration from tomorrow? Like, who am I going to turn to? They're going to find someone else. They're going to get another email, read other books. They'll miss me a little bit, but they'll move on to other people. It's your family that's going to miss you greatly.
Yeah. As you share that, and it makes me think and again, makes me reflect on somebody, what has John Maxwell meant in my life? And I said, I don't know if I'll fully be able to comprehend it until I have to evaluate those days when he's no longer here.
Wow, that's great.
And it's very much that same idea. And I appreciate you sharing it because, like I mentioned earlier, your early work, the carpenter, the hard hat, which touched me tremendously, which I've used with so many athletes. I mean, you ask a kid in Spokane who played soccer, and they probably have heard of the hard hat, and the power of a positive leadership to all of them. They've been impactful to me, and so I thank you for this time. I thank you for being here. One final question I'd love for you to be able to share. Where can people that are listening to this maybe don't know all of your work, where can they go to find out more, to learn more what you do every day?
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, they can go to jongordon.com, Jon Gordon.com. I'm also on X, Instagram at JONGordon11. And I am also involved on LinkedIn and Facebook and, everywhere. So you can just find me on there. Always sharing tips and value and information. And again, when you're posting, it's like, okay, what do you really want to post? What's going to sustain you? Because so many people do it for a little while and then they're done. And if you're really in it for the long haul, it's going to be something you love to do, something you love to share, something you're passionate about, and something that is coming from your heart. It's not for a business purpose. It's for a life purpose. And I started my weekly positive tip. I would encourage people to go to jongordon.com and sign up for my weekly positive tip. And I started that in 2002. And every week I write a positive tip since 2002 and still do it to this day. And I have to write it. I can't let others write it. Like, I've got to write this tip. And that's something I share ongoing. And go to my website, get a ton of free resources for people, a 7-step positivity plan. We've got free assessments. We got a lot of good stuff. So people can check that out if they want the resources for themselves and also for their team.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all those that are watching today on YouTube. Make sure to hit subscribe button as well as the bell so you get notified whenever we drop new content, either the Monday Newswire or podcasts each Wednesday. John, thank you again so much. And for listeners on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could rate and review this episode, that way more people can find and listen to impactful leaders like John, I would appreciate it. Until next time, choose to lead with impact.